Good afternoon. It is Saturday, the 29th of January, and you're listening to Team Bubba podcast. It's me, Barry Bigham. It's Larry.
Hiya, Baz.
And Stevie. Fortunately, logistics have not allowed us to have Billy with us today, but we always knew this was always going to be that kind of nightmare anyway. So it is what it is, unfortunately. We'll miss him and we'll get him on to the next one. Yeah, we're just getting together again today, just have a bit of an after things that have gone on over the past week that's come into the news. There's absolutely loads going on at the minute. More and more stuff coming out. I mean, one of the main things, I think, is the Canadian truckers, the Freedom truckers. That just seems to have exploded. It's been going on for weeks, hasn't it?
Well, to be honest, I don't really know much about it, to be fair. So
yeah, I've watched quite a few videos on it, and I've been keeping an eye on it. Well, first of all, where's Justin Trudeau? Is he playing hide and seek with Jacinda Ardern? It looks like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it looks like they're both isolated, aren't they?
So I find it really strange because the timing of it is unbelievable.
Perfect.
The truckers are now in Ottawa, where the final destination was. So Trudeau's got into hiding, and he's made out that he's been in contact with someone that's had the old Rona. And he seems to think that he's following guidelines of isolating for 5 days. But
it is great auntie twice removed or something. It's tested positive.
Is that the reason why he's...
Yeah.
But he's tested negative, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's tested negative, which means he's not following the local guidelines. Well, I think CDC guidelines is if you're fully jabbed, right, and you have a negative, you don't need to isolate. That's what they recommend, and that's what most Canadians are following. So he's got into hiding. The timing of it, when you've got 50 to 70,000 trucks rolling into your, the government area, he's gone hiding. That's for sure. I don't know if you want me to go through some little bits that I've picked up on this Freedom Convoy.
Yeah, sure.
And most of probably the listeners already know it, but just to be clear though, most of these, they're not going out as if they're all anti-vaccine. They're going in as like anti-government mandate, because that came into effect on the 15th of January, which means that on both US and Canada, they can't cross over the border unless they've all had their arm spears, and they also have to have tests when they go back and forth. And my understanding is also there might be some quarantine involved as well in that. But the men and women that are driving those trucks, and not just trucks, we've got people following in pickups, cars, vans, and RVs.
There was a smart car, wasn't there, on one of the videos that we saw, which is brilliant.
It will surprise me the people there in scooters, electric scooters, you name it. But they are basically they're fed up with restrictions that's been going on, being fed up of being told what to do, and this ostracising between you've had your arm spear and not. They've had enough of lockdowns, and I think they've got. Just like they are in this country and most other countries now, they've like they have in London, they're doing marches over here, over in Canada and some other places. They were going not very quick enough, I don't think. Their demonstrations didn't start too late, and I think now this is becoming like an avalanche. Now I can't believe how quickly they've taken up this. Whoever's organised this is well organised. Because we're looking at, they've even said that we won't be blocking emergency vehicles. They've got safety plans in place at checkpoints. We've even arranged with farmers to help them clear up the snow along the way. with their tractors along there. I don't know,
Yeah.
2,400 miles from British Columbia to Ottawa.
Yeah.
50 to 80,000 trucks, which is probably about 46 miles long. And I think when they started this off, they would have been happy with 500 trucks, and they would have blockaded Ottawa, and they would have stayed there until either the government drops the mandates or Trudeau's out. I know it's one or the two.
So that was my next question, or that was a question. What is the end point of this convoy? Big convoy.
Well, I've got a. Hang on a minute. I've just popped up a spokesman, convoy spokesman, BJ. I think Dicter, Dichter, and he's got a quote here that says, "They're not the global elite. They're global." This is about the World Economic Forum. They're global scavengers going across the country, taking up all of the resources and putting the rest of us into serfdom. Then underneath it says, "A convoy of truckers currently is making its way through Canada, protesting government vaccine mandates required within the industry. But BJ Dieter, spokesman for the Canadian Truck Freedom Convoy, has said that it's just half the battle for the convoy participants." So it's not just basically freedom, isn't it? It's this. I can't believe that the media and the government are saying that they've been threatened by these people, because they're not.
It's just a way of them tarnishing anyone that's doing good. As we know from our own experiences, they'll throw dirt at you to make you look bad, like they did. Like we've had with Team Bubba. They'll accuse you of all the most worst crimes. I mean, these truckers are also being, I think, come under terrorists. They're called terrorists.
Domestic terrorists.
Yeah. Back in 2020, you've got government officials, including Justin Trudeau, saying we should be thanking them, just like we did, with the NHS. Go out, bang your pans, clap. The heroes. That's what they was treated like before. But now, they're not. They call them domestic, like you said, domestic terrorists.
So they're not going to stop until what? Trudeau stepped down.
Yep.
Or these mandates are. Surely that's got to be the one, isn't it? Because if Trudeau stepped down, someone else would just step in and carry on.
I think you're right. I think the most important one, of course, is the mandates to stop, but they want him out regardless. Now, I mean, there's rumours, right, that the Mennonite church communities, which are a little bit like the Hamish people, even they've been heading towards Ottawa, travelling about 340 miles in their horse and carriages. Not just because, nothing to do with the mandates. I think there's something to do with some quilt pattern restrictions that this idiot has put on them. They want to make patterns, and quilts. They're telling them, you can't do it this way and do this. Right, we've had enough. We go down there. So you imagine all the horse shit. That's
ridiculous.
You're talking
isn't
about a few thousand of these horse and buggies, what you call them, that they drive. Respect to them for that.
Is there no part of life that they're trying to control here?
It's mental.
Yeah, that's basically it. It's control. But now they probably thought right at the beginning, because it was very quiet and there was no one doing much on the demonstration side. They did not expect this, and they definitely did not expect to get the donations they've got now. 98,000 people have donated to their GoFundMe, which is currently at about $7.7 million. But for the first time, GoFundMe's actually frozen those funds. They've actually said, this is the cock and bull story, they've said that there's been no documentation submitted that explains how they're going to disperse the donations, which is crap, because I've had a look on there already, and it says on there that they broke it down. If they had 50,000 trucks, they worked it out how much diesel would cost from a round trip, it'd be about, for 50,000 trucks, you're looking at $2.7 million for just diesel. Then you've got food, drink, lodgings, probably repairs and parts, things like that. Now, for them to get reimbursed like most companies do, or anything to do with funding, they have to submit receipts, and then they will get their money back. And whatever's left at the end, because there's going to be more and more money pouring in, they're going to donate all of the funds to the Canadian Veterans Association, which is a good cause.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's well organised. They've answered all the questions. They're getting backing by pop star, was it Kid Rock and all these other people.
Yeah.
Loads of people are speaking out for these, and all they're going to get is the local media, like they did in London. They pick small pockets of protest and say, "Look, yeah, about 500 to 1,000 people turn up today." All they've got to do is look at this drone footage they've got, and there's miles and miles of these trucks. There's only so long they can keep this quiet.
Well, they did that with the marches in London, didn't they? Even the one that you lot went to. All the reports said a few hundred people. The BBC said a few hundred people. I think ITV said 1,000 or so protesters. Nobody said there was 1.3 million people turned up.
Right. No. That was mental that day. I remember when we were halfway down Oxford Street. I got my camera out. I should have videoed it both ways, but I got my camera out and zoomed it all the way down where we just walked, and as far as the eye could see was just a sea of people. And then if you spun around 180 degrees to where we were heading, exactly the same, just a sea of people as far as the eye could see. It was unbelievable. And that was back in May. That was last May. So imagine how many people have woken up since then. It's just ridiculous. We're the majority now. I think the majority of people can see that there's something seriously wrong here, and they lost all trust in the whole thing.
I think you're bang on now.
So I mean, if they got to roll out, if they had plans for rolling out a fourth arm dart, I think they got to put that on hold, because it's just a joke. People aren't going to do it. I think over here in the UK, they had a big push before Christmas, pushing people into the third one, and I think the results of that is clearly a big F off, if you know what I mean. We don't want it. The majority don't want it. Yeah, you'll get a few million go after it, but the majority are saying no.
Thing is, we all know it makes no sense whatsoever, does it? Because they reckon that over 90% of people have had this thing, which blows everything out of the water. Because if they're saying that, because didn't all the results come back in from Israel, didn't they? Where they found out that if you've got natural immunity, and you've had it once, which means you've got the antibodies, then you are 27. If you get jabbed, you are 27 times more likely to catch something again than somebody who's got natural antibodies.
Well, they keep changing it, Baz.
But this was this week, wasn't it? I think I read that this week.
They keep changing it. I think I saw something last day or two. They're saying this new strain of the latest one, you can catch again if you've had it before, like natural. So they're just floundering now, aren't they? They're just trying anything just to try and.
Why don't they see it? Why don't people see this?
Get the cat back in the bag, the genie back in the bottle. That ain't happening.
Just, I don't understand the thought processes that have gone on all the way through this. I think I said that from day one, and I've had that discussion at work a few times. I just don't understand the thought process to go out and get something in your body that nobody knows anything about. And when you go to try and find out what it is, nobody will tell you. I just don't understand the thought process. Plus, it wasn't killing the amount of people that they said it was going to. And just they're saying now, they're all coming out now and saying, even a lot of the scientists and doctors are coming out now saying it's relatable to flu.
Yeah.
So
they've said it themselves. They've said it. They're treating it like flu.
Yeah. So I don't understand how all the restrictions in other countries are still going on. I just don't understand. It's as if we all know there's a bigger picture here. We know it's not just about getting a vaccine out there. But I don't understand that how every single country is doing it so slightly differently.
Could be something to do with the holding on to the power. They just, look what we had just here in the UK. You've got Wales, Scotland. Don't really get. I've never heard of those leaders before this. Apart from little cranky Sturgeon up there. But I'd never heard of the guy in Wales before, to be honest. I'd never heard of him. And all of a sudden now, he's getting so much publicity, and I'm thinking, who's this guy? Who is he? But he doesn't want to let go of power. He's getting to the, don't forget, most people that become leaders of some kind, they want to go down in history, and it doesn't matter if it's bad or good. Mostly bad, because people remember bad things more than do good things throughout history. You do something good, it has to be something amazing. If you do something bad, then it's easier to do bad in this life than it is good, because that's just the way life is at the moment around people that are, psychopaths, because that's what they are.
It's easy for people to forget as well, isn't it? That if the media don't show that what's happened again, then everybody forgets. It proves it, because if people are supporting Tony Blair to get a knighthood, then they've forgotten what he actually did.
Yeah, but are they, Baz? Really? Yeah, I bet if you was to ask most people in the street, what do you think of Tony Blair, they'd all sneer the nose up and call him see you next Tuesday.
There's a few Labour supporters at work that have said that he was the best thing to happen to the Labour Party. And I'm just like, what? Sorry?
Yeah,
I just don't understand that.
I voted for him.
If you're
I did vote for him.
What? Who did? You did?
Yeah, I voted him in 97.
I think if you look at it this way, that
it's your fault.
Most people, well done. If you look at it this way, most
cut
people
me off.
that are into politics, they follow. You either one party man, like I'm Labour through and through.
Mm.
It doesn't matter what people say, you'll always defend them. I did with my old man, right, and he loved Margaret Thatcher, right. He conservative through and through. And I'll never forget they took milk away from me when I was a kid at school. Bastards. But do you know what I mean? Look at the things she did. Right? A lot of people say, she's an Iron Lady, great. She was.
I couldn't stand her. I could not stand that woman.
I couldn't.
But can you remember what song he got in on? Can you remember that song they kept playing, the Labour Party, in the 97 leading up to the election? That's it.
D-Ream. And who's the guy who was in D-Ream? That scientist guy. What's his name? That young guy? What's his name?
I don't know. Terrible with names, lad.
Is it? I'll tell you what it is.
Yeah, there's no point in asking me either.
But your old Maggie, I mean, looking back, I probably got a lot more respect for her. But at the time, I just couldn't stand the woman. Couldn't stand her.
Well, obviously, in Barnsley, it's slightly different because it's absolutely Labour here.
Mm.
It was more so than that before. I think Tories got a bit of a foothold last time. They won quite a lot of votes back off the Labour lot. But it's Labour purely because it's an ex-mining area. And they have not forgotten the mining strikes.
Yeah.
And what happened through that. And I think people forget just how bad it actually was. I mean, when I moved here, because Halifax, was that? I think that's Labour, but I think that flip-flopped every now and again to Tory, to Labour, to Tory. But I think when I left there, it was Labour, and I came here and it was just staunch Labour. There was just no point anybody else standing, and I think it's still a bit like that. But I think there's more interest, I think, from some people with other parties now. So the Labour majority is dwindling.
So the D-Ream guy, that scientist, is Dr. Brian Cox. He was the keyboard.
Yeah. Was he?
D-Ream. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Blimey. Didn't know that.
Well, he's an absolute bellend anyway.
Yeah.
I can't stand the fella.
Why did they put him in though? If you think about it, right, you've got these people like some of these TV doctors that come forward. They say you'll get some handsome guy to put him on TV, so all the ladies go for him. And that's probably what they've done with this science guy. Probably thinking, look at Chris Whitty. Brian Cox, which one would you...
Bloody hell. So, Baz, tell me, just get jumping back to the miners thing, a little bit of a side thing here, because obviously we ain't got mines around where I live. Is it true that, because obviously at the time, people who crossed the line, the picket line, they were called scabs, and families fell out and they were at war, and I think they say to this day, people still will not speak to each other. And that was like 40 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In the early 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Is that true then? Families still will not speak to each other because of what happened back then?
I don't think it's as bad as it was. Because obviously there's no miners here anymore, so you're moving on to like another generation. In fact, you're probably going on to a third generation since that happened. Right. So, those that were involved will have been over 20-year-old in the 80s. Yeah. So now, I mean, what are we now? 40 years above that?
Yeah.
So that suddenly puts even the youngest at 55, 60-year-old. And if they've had it drummed into them, the older ones, the 30s and 40-year-old miners, they'll be in the 60s or 70s if they're still alive. Now, unless it's been drilled into them by the parents, then, they're not into the way the conditioning goes on now of the population. You're taught not to have a hatred unless you're told to have a hatred. So everybody at the minute is made to have a hatred against all those anti-vaxxers, so we're called, even though we're not against us, but they're not allowed to have a hatred against anything else. So I think times are changing, I think.
Yeah.
But it was bad. I hear that from Caroline, it's because she's from here. Tore communities apart because, people wanted to feed the families.
Yeah.
But then the others needed them not to go to the mines to have the government and the mining companies by the balls.
Yeah, so it's got similarities to what's going on now. I mean, we need people to come over our side to put the pressure onto the government to back down.
Yeah.
And if too many of them stay going with the flow, that makes things difficult, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So if not enough people support that convoy over in Canada, that'll fail. But it's looking like they are going to overpower, from what I'm hearing, what you boys have said and videos I watched. It does look like the momentum. And people are now probably going to think, I want to get on the right side of history here. I'm going to, like Billy's been saying this all along, isn't he? We've got to see people jumping over and then they'll claim that, well, I always knew, I've always said. No, you were the other side, mate. We were fighting you. And you were calling us everything under the sun. And he's right. I think Billy's right. I think we are going to start seeing people jumping over, maybe getting a bit loud and try to make out that they're doing their bit now, getting on the right side of history. When the reality was they were part of the problem, a big part of the problem. And collectively, that's why they've managed to drag it out so long.
Yes,
but it is looking bright now. I think there is definitely a light at the end of the tunnel now. But where are they going to lead us from? I mean,
it all depends, I think, on how, because we all know the media are compromised. I mean, I know we've all been going back over the JFK to 9/11 video. I watched it again this week as well. And that goes into detail about explaining how the media have, well, I know in America the CIA admitted to having paid members in employment in media companies. And I think it's more so nowadays. They get paid to report in a particular way. We know that they get subsidies from the governments to report as the government want them to. But I also think there are other reporters who are paid by the secret services to report the stories that they're told to report on, because they are they've got two jobs. They're part of the secret service, and they're also in the media division of the Secret Service. So they do as they're told that way. But it just depends how many they're going to allow through, because I know even the Daily Mail have reported on it how it should be reported on, saying that Trudeau said that this convoy is just a few disgruntled drivers, anti-vaxxers. But and then the report in the Daily Mail, which is I'm not keen on any of the news agencies, but it reports it correctly by saying it. Look at these videos; it doesn't look like that's the case. There's 50,000 they're reporting, and that's growing by the day. So as long as it gets reported correctly and people start seeing that, then people's ears will start to prick up, and they'll think, "Hang on, there's people fighting here." Because when the marches were going on in London, people just thought it were a few hundred or 1,000 or so people causing a load of hassle in London, whereas all it was over 1 million freedom fighters showing that you're not going to be able to stop us because this is just a handful of us here today. What if we all come? What if all, 15 to 20 million of us who haven't been jabbed suddenly decide to descend on London? What are you going to do? You're not going to do anything, because you can't do anything. It's the weight in numbers, and those people, I think, that are sitting on the fence and just saying, let's just all go along with it. It's easier if we just go along with it. I think if they get shown that people are actually fighting here, and a lot of people are fighting, if the reports are saying 50,000 truckers, what's to say it's not 75,000 truckers? What's to say it's not 100,000 in the convoy completely? That's a lot of people that are going out of the way. Not a lot of people can give up their jobs for the length of time that this has been going on. But how long have they been doing it now? Is it nearly 2 weeks? I think it started in mid-January, didn't it?
I don't know.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, some started not long after the 15th when the military come in, but I think the main convoy started around about the 24th, where they set off from British Columbia. But what you just said there just reminded me of something there, Bazza, and that was you think about, so the UK media can correctly report what's going on in another country, but they can't hear.
Yeah.
That should be automatically, people assume that it's because they've had a gagging, kind of some sort of gagging going on, where they're actually stopping them from reporting properly or paid or part of the issue. Why if they're all these countries are in it together, like you said earlier, why is it they're still continuing with this, and why is it the media reporting differently, accurately over in Canada or in New Zealand? Because I saw the report that was going on in New Zealand. It was on Good Morning Britain, and it said that in New Zealand at the moment, 24 days in isolation if you get positive test.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you was to go and say get hold of your own lateral flow test and you did it at home and submitted that, they'll give you 6 months in jail for that. And if you look at all the shop, because it's a complete ghost town through most of towns and cities, they're empty.
Mm-hmm.
And this is only because of 9 people have been positive from it. I've had Omicron.
Yeah.
But
where's this? New Zealand?
New Zealand.
Yeah.
It's seriously heavy there. I mean, Australia is, it's heavy there. Canada is, but New Zealand is probably the number one worst at the moment.
I think this is why I've said all along, and this is why I've always been an advocate of a VPN, a virtual private network on your either on your computer or on your phone, because that enables you to go onto the internet, and the internet will think that you are in New Zealand and you want to know what the news is in New Zealand, in your own country, and it will tell you. If we go, as we are, it knows that we're from the UK, so you don't get the correct news
Mm.
Yeah.
It's well worth the investment just to see the news from a different perspective. You know, that was when I found out that what was it? There was the what were it? The variant that started off down south somewhere.
What, this country?
Yeah, it was a South End variant or
Oh,
something like that.
Kent variant.
Kent, that was it.
Kent
Yeah.
variant.
And it disappeared from here. And I went on to a news website in Thailand using a Thailand VPN, and they were pushing the Kent variant in Thailand, saying it was ripping through the country. And I'm thinking, what? So they're all getting lied to from one extent to another.
That's right, yeah. They're working against each other. So they're trying to prove that there's something dodgy going on in Canada with these trucks, but they're reporting it wrong. But we're telling you the truth.
Yeah.
That's basically how they're doing it.
Yeah.
Cover their own asses to say, yeah. But, you know, this Freedom Convoy is just taking off. You know, we've shared stuff with each other. Brazil, Italy. I mean, they've got a Freedom Convoy in Australia now. They've already set up their own GoFundMe. Within 24 hours, they've already got $63,000. So that's kicking off. And they've also got a European one that's starting, which is based, of course, on the concept of the Canadian one. And they expect to arrive in Brussels from all European countries. They're just going to gridlock Brussels on the 7th of February. That's
blimey.
Yeah. So you've got Australia, of course, already know, I've just mentioned. There's Netherlands, Czechoslovakian, Finnish one, French.
I think what's in Italy as well.
Yeah.
I think what would be an idea as well, if we come across any video footage or I guess, any video footage, we should make note of that and maybe put videos up on our YouTube channel so that if people want to see what's happening in other countries, any footage that they can't see on the news, because some people are not in the same groups that we're in on Telegram. Some people just don't see what we see. It'd be an idea for us to start putting videos up to sort of help people see and be aware of what's going on.
Right, yeah. If we spot some on YouTube and it's not being flagged and taken down, I think it's a good idea. If not, we can probably put it on our BitChute site.
Yeah.
It's a bit more, less likely to get taken down. Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah.
As we discussed last week with censorship on these platforms. Which is why it makes it a bit of a nightmare to do, doesn't it? We've always wanted to do something like this, but we've just not been confident enough to do because of censorship. Because you just get worried if you say something, they're just going to take everything down and boot you off. And again, that's coming down. That's a cancel culture, isn't it? You're saying things that we don't want anybody else to hear, so you're out.
Yeah, that's right. These countries and regions different. They'll say, we've kind of part blocked your video in South Asia because there's restrictions there. Nobody in that region can actually watch your video because of some content you've put in there.
Mm-hmm.
But the rest, the rest of the world's fine. So it does happen like that. We've had it on our own videos before we start doing the podcasts. Talking
about cancel culture, I think we've just got to mention the Spotify Joe Rogan.
Oh yes,
Neil Young, Barry Manilow gate.
They're all out on themselves now, aren't they?
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
But like I said to you, this is a guy I went to see in concert years ago.
Like?
Yeah, my mum took me. I was only a teenager. I shouldn't be admitting to this.
It's mine, bros.
I used to like thrash metal, in fact I still do. I can't be saying I've been to see Barry Manilow.
My mum did, mate. Him and Dennis Rousseau.
Horrendous. But yeah, basically what's gone on, just in case anybody who doesn't know, Neil Young, start with Spotify. Spotify have basically given Joe Rogan a huge contract. I think it's $100 million or something for exclusively being on Spotify. this is a contract that I think it was 6 months ago 12 months ago that they agreed this. Neil Young, the aging classic rocker from America, has basically threatened Spotify that if they're not going to get rid of Joe Rogan, they need to start removing his content from Spotify, which they did. They started removing Neil Young's content from Spotify, and then I think it's come out this morning that Barry Manilow's asked to have his content removed, and I think there's somebody else as well. I can't remember her name.
Joni Mitchell.
Joni Mitchell, yeah.
And I saw something pop up earlier today. It was James Blunt. He was joking that he's going to release his new music on Spotify in Rogan protest. I don't know if it's funny. Will take it down later? I don't know.
Yeah, Joni Mitchell's she's a folk artist, isn't she? Some of her stuff's really good, but it's the same thing that with the Foo Fighters. I'll do exactly the same. Any of these people that I listen to beforehand who are condemning those people who choose not to get jabbed or who are against all these measures, if they speak out against us or stop us from going to their concerts because of, then I will not buy another record from them. I won't even listen to Foo Fighters anymore now. I'm a massive fan of Foo Fighters, purely because they were doing vaccinated gigs only. And so from that point onwards, I got rid of every single Foo Fighter record, every album I had, I threw them all in the bin. And now if they come on the radio, I'll change the station. If I'm listening, if it comes up on something like Spotify, I'll skip it and get it off, because I will not give them another penny, and I will not promote them whatsoever.
I've got rid of all my Jedward CDs.
Oh dear. Yeah. Yeah. Good one.
But that's how we get them, isn't it? That's how you vote with your feet. It's all these shops. If there's a shop saying you can't come in unless you're vaccinated, then I'm sorry, you will never, ever, even when you're on your knees and you've got your open arms out saying, please come back, I didn't mean that. I'll never step foot in your premises ever again.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah, mate. And it's the same with businesses as well.
Yeah.
I'll be the same.
Morrison's.
That said, sorry, yeah.
Morrison's with their vaccination thing, and whether they're not paying sick pay to those that are unvaccinated. Yeah, no, not going there ever again. No.
There's loads doing that, though, aren't there?
Yeah.
I won't even buy a Nissan car anymore now. I've done the same.
Sainsbury's, they're asking people to still wear the masks, aren't they?
Yeah, do not just
never
to
set
add
him
to
foot.
that. I was actually in there. I went in there as a protest. I've been looking at, because I thought I was going to video it.
Did you actually go? Because I know you said you were going to.
Yeah, I did a window shopping.
Brilliant.
Walked all the way around. I was quite surprised there were a few in there that didn't have masks on, and they looked like a little bit nervous. I don't know why, because I wanted. But the thing is, when you approach the store, on the doors is a massive poster in blue with the white kind of like mask. Must wear a mask, but no one said nothing. I think what it is, they probably spoke too soon about it, and maybe think, well, even though we did, we've probably got backlash, or maybe the media took it out of context. I don't know. Whichever it is, I walked in there, I walked around, and I thought, pick a few veg up, put it back, and I walked all the way around past the tills.
You're contaminating veg.
Yeah, I didn't cough on them though. So. But when I got round, right back round the tills, nobody confronted me. But then I've never had that anyway.
But they can't now, can they?
Yeah,
they can't confront you now. I mean, for people who don't know, who are listening outside the UK, the mask mandate was dropped, a couple of days ago?
Yeah.
26th, yeah.
Although it weren't law really anyway, was it? Because there was an exemption.
Which is nothing. It's nothing. It's not law really, is it?
No, there's always an exemption, isn't there? That's the way around it. Because it's not set in law. You're not supposed to be able to ask somebody what their exemption is. But you can be exempt for any reason. If you're uncomfortable, if it makes you anxious, then you don't have to wear one, and you don't have to justify it to anybody.
Yeah.
But I think people didn't twig onto this in the early days.
Well, they thought that was all BS, didn't they?
Yeah.
When people were confronted, they even like printed off the government's own website or show them on the phone, say, look, it's on the government website, read that.
Yeah.
And it's just like straight out of their heads.
Yeah.
You just can't process that. It can't be. That's got to be fake. You've photoshopped that. You know, that must be what's going through their head when they're seeing that sort of thing. I just can't get my head around the mask thing. I just can't. I just can't get my head around the mask thing. How people are wearing them.
Yeah, what bugs me more than anything is, look, I get the ones that have worn it all the way from day one, right? They're either, you know, they've got an underlying condition, they're old, you know, like elderly, which they've been brainwashed, unfortunately, because they go, you know, they've probably been told by their friends and that, oh, you know, you must wear a mask to stop you from getting COVID and all these other things. But the ones that flip-flop, you know, the ones, I mean, prime example, right? You go into your local store and you'd always see people that wore masks, even when Boris said you don't need to wear one anymore. I kind of look at them and I think, do you know, I know where you stand and I respect that because I know you're probably either afraid or you know what you want. It's these other ones, the ones that put it on because Boris has told them to put it on or to take it off.
Playing Simon Says.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the ones that pay me off. And they're the ones that I'm thinking, do you know something? You're just one of these people that does what your boss tells you to do. You know, oh, I'm just doing my job or whatever. No matter what the cost is, because you're when you was brought up through school, through university or wherever, you've actually looked up to authority to abide their rules all the way through. Because that, I'm not sure about you guys or not, but sometimes I wonder if this is a class thing. Because when I see people in posh areas, everyone's wearing masks.
Yeah.
Even walking down the streets, you've probably seen this, Baz, as well. You know, villages. Everyone's wearing a mask. But you go to an area where it's just a working man or a little bit, you know, like a council area or anything like that, they're walking around as normal.
Yeah.
You very rarely see anyone wear a mask.
Yeah, there's a couple of mental cases around here, I think, that are a few sandwiches short of a picnic. They walk down the street wearing them. But I don't live in a massively affluent area. Just down the road, there is one with huge houses. And when I drive through that twice a day, and they all wear masks. They all get into the cars wearing the masks. They're all, you know, it's just like unbelievable. And you just think, is it because they don't want to lose what they've got? Because it looks like they may have a bit of cash and nice things, a nice car. Do they believe? Are they stupid enough to believe what they're being told instead of looking into it themselves? I don't get it. I don't get that divide between, like you said, between the classes.
Yeah, it just makes you wonder, innit, if it is about holding on to their money or they want their free holidays a year, so they're just going to do as they're told, or their brand new car, if they lose their job over it,
yeah,
they won't be able to pay this massive house with some whatever.
Exactly.
It could be that, mate. I don't know, but all I know is what I see, and you know, people I work with, I'm probably odd one out of everyone I work with, and I can tell you now, I'll be banging my head against the wall if I was talking to them about what we're talking about today.
Yeah,
I'll just get ripped apart by them, purely because the bullying, you know, the amount of people that believe this, and I work in an environment very much with people that've got quite a lot, and it's such a shame.
Mm. Whereas everybody at my work knows my stance. 100%, and not barely any of them will speak to me about it because I've got such a case to argue with it that they can't. They just can't. There's just no point them doing it. It's not that I don't shout people down. You just give them an argument that they can't answer back to.
What, like the truth, Baz? The science?
Exactly, mate. It's
the
exactly
actual
what
data.
it is. Yeah. Where have you got that from? Government website. Show me. This way. It's there, look. Yeah, rubbish. Read it then. You know, and that's the kind of conversations you have sometimes.
The thing is that they don't have the time, because they 100% depend on their parents, which is the government, to tell them how things are, what they can and can't do.
Yeah.
Unless it's on the news, and even then they might still continue with this.
Well, the original spreadsheets that came out from the ONS and the government, that they were an absolute mare to read. I mean, because they were so big and there was so much data in there, that I think that's why they got away with that. That, you know, they didn't bank on, and I think I referred to this in the interview that I did with Caroline. You know, that's what we do. We're administrators, and that's what we do for a living is look at spreadsheets and organise spreadsheets, as well as, you know, everything else in this job. So that kind of thing didn't scare us. We downloaded it. We have the software to open it, and we have the intelligence or the knack to be able to get rid of all the data that you don't need on your screen, because there's only a few columns in there that are actually relevant to what, you know, the answers that you need. So you can see the big picture. But yeah, they should learn then. They should learn. If that's the only place that you can get the data from for yourself, then people should learn how to read spreadsheets, for me.
But even when you said the ONS data is even being put on some mainstream media sites, you think people would go, what? Only 17,000 people have been, have died that have got underlying conditions. Sorry, have died that have not had underlying conditions, but died of or with COVID. And you think, surely you should look at the 150,000 that you've been told up to the 17. And, I don't think this video will get flagged for this, because this is fact checked by their own data, So there's no problem us talking about it. I just find it really strange that the people I work with, they'll talk about non-stop about testing. Oh, so-and-so's got this and so-and-so's got the Rona, but they won't ever talk about these figures. And that is right in front of them. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's obviously, there's something going on. They've been fudging the numbers, but they don't see it. Why can't they see it like we can?
I think they've invested 2 years of believing in something, and I think it is classic cognitive dissonance, isn't it? Is that the definition of that? They just, like with the rest of the truth world, shall we call it, you spent your whole life believing certain things, and then when you find out that, hang on a minute, this has all been a massive lie, it is quite a big thing to accept that you've been lied to your whole life about a certain subject, and the world is not what you think it is. And this is it. Most people, I think, when they're confronted with that information, they just reject it. They can't cope with it. It's too much. And when you think about it, what's happened the last 2 years, the worst thing you can do with someone is just push information on them. They'll just reject it even more. And that's what's been happening with this. Yeah. You've had our side pushing information on them. They just can't cope with it. They can't possibly process it. You literally have to let them work it out themselves. And this is why this has gone on so long, I think, because it is natural for us to want to say, look at this. And you almost force people into listening to you. And all they're doing in their little minds is the old eyes are rolling back in their heads like a bell fruit, aren't they? Spinning around. They've got no interest in what you're saying. They're just sitting there letting you say your shit, but they're not really taking any of it in. No. And that's made it worse, I think. Really, we should have just stepped aside and let the actual truth do the talking. And that is eventually what's happened, isn't it? That's what's happened. The actual truth is what's, people are seeing for themselves who's getting the kung flu. People who have had the arm dart and then they're getting the kung flu, and they're just seeing for themselves and working it all out that, hang on a minute. Yeah, this ain't quite what we were told. It's too late for a lot of people.
Do you think that'll happen with the adverse reactions then? Because we are seeing so much more of it, aren't we, in the media? I mean. We were discussing it about the footballers, especially because they're more so in the mainstream media than the others.
Yeah, I mean, that is part of it. Sorry, Steve, you carry on, mate.
Go on. I was just going to say, I think most people, they won't see it until it affects them.
Yeah.
You know, they lose a close one to them, or, like you said, someone with an effect to one of the armed spears, or, you know, if it affects their job, that's when they open their eyes and go, I need to look into this more. It's because they're in such a laid-back time with it, even though they're obsessed with probably testing and everything else, until it affects them close to their heart, I can't really see them actually changing their mind about it.
No.
I think we're at a situation where a lot of people know, but they won't admit it to the people around them. But deep down, they sort of know, and their behaviour, like when the fourth one come along, that they're not gonna go for it. But that they won't come out and say, "Oh yeah, you were right all along. I wish I'd have listened to you."
No,
will they? I think that's the situation we're at, and as time go on, that's just going to get more and more. I mean, like I say, I think we are a massive majority now. I really do.
Well, you guys have shared things with us about, like some of even the mainstream media posts, people's comments.
Yeah, that's what I was then going to say. Right through all this, I've always studied public opinion, and like I'll go on, like popular Facebook groups, like newspaper groups sort of thing, just to see what people are saying in the comments. And at the start of all this, you'd be lucky to see one or two comments like which would come from our side of the fence sort of thing. Now it's the other way round.
It's flipped on it.
It's totally flipped the other way. And like the classic left and right, like I think we talked about this in the last one, they're coming together. The left and the right are coming back together in the centre, and they're joining forces. They are. They're joining forces, and it can only end one way now.
Yeah.
It can. There's no going back. Well, I mean, then people aren't suddenly going to start believing it all again. It can only go one way, where more and more come back into that centre point and start to say, look, we've got to change things here. This can't go on. And this is where I think all these governments are floundering, and they're behaving differently because they're all judging their populations by, like with Australia and New Zealand, they're very compliant. So they're still in a position where they could be heavy-handed with them. Maybe Canada, but now that's flipping. Whereas us, we've been, like I said a little while back in May, there was over 1 million people in London. We witnessed it with our own eyes. We can't say exactly how many were there, but it was more than 500,000, without a doubt. I've been in football crowds, I've been in concert crowds, I've seen a lot of people, and there was way more than that day.
There were miles of people, weren't there? That was the thing.
It was unbelievable.
You can only see so many.
Yeah.
You know, you as you were walking, you wouldn't have known that it was because there was footage of people taking pictures and videos from out of buildings, weren't there? And it was people as far as the eye could see.
Yeah, it was just, I mean, the traffic was just stuck. That couldn't go nowhere, and it was got to be stuck for hours while this sea of people. And there was double-decker buses just covered in stickers. Just covered in stickers. Oh, it was a brilliant day. That's an absolutely brilliant day. And that was nearly, 9 months ago that was. So this is what I mean, that massively moved over. Loads of people have moved over to our side since then. we are a big majority now. It's just the media are just painting a picture where they claim, like you said earlier, with Trudeau saying it's just a fringe, fringe movement of people, just a very small minority. No, you're lying through your teeth, mate.
Yeah. Why would they tell the truth now? They've lied all the way along, haven't they?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was just going to say about the different communities, as in like the truth movements that have come together now, and even though we've I've read on some Telegram groups, especially about the NHS 100,000 that have also just kind of come into it all. They're saying, well, they're just coming into it now. They didn't care before. It's only their jobs, and it doesn't matter. We're all, to be honest, I'll be quite happy for thousands and thousands of people that used to say bad things about me would open their eyes and join, and because we're all in the same fight at the end of the day. I went on a protest last week, the NHS one in Essex, and speaking to the NHS people there was really nice, and they're really so much like us. It's a little bit difficult, I think, when they're in the NHS because they're there with the patients, and they have to be, the slightest little information comes out about them being maybe on our side, they're called an anti-vaxxer, even though they might have even had one vaccine or two. They're an anti-vaxxer, and I think they don't want that, to be put against, against their name. So I think that looking at all the different communities in the truth movement, no matter whoever wakes up now, is a bonus to us going forward, because we're all in the same fight, and I think we're bloody winning it going forward, definitely.
Well, I think this convoy's got to be a big indicator of how this whether it's going to end fairly quickly or whether it's going to drag on a lot longer. Are they going to somehow twist this, into something violent so they can get heavy-handed with them, like they did in Australia when the tradies all confronted the unions and they brought the police out with the rubber bullets and stuff? Are they going to try and do something like that?
I don't know, mate. I actually think if they were going to do something, they would have stopped them getting into it. This is the capital, Canada.
That's what I mean. Are they luring them in there, and then they're going to make an example of them?
I think they're wanting the violence, aren't they? They're wanting to push and poke them until they do fight back. And then that's when they will wade in and use force, because then they'll be able to say, oh, we justified it because of this. Mm-hmm. And all the other sheep around will just say, oh, yeah, well, they deserved it then, because you can't do that. But if they don't raise a finger, if they don't do anything, then the government can't do anything back. They can only fudge so much footage and so much information. I mean, we know we've seen people setting up in the early days where they were lying, even when it came down to floods and came down to weather reports on the news. We've seen footage of news reporters stood in wind and reckoning on that it's an absolute storm force gale, and then a couple walk past with just a raincoat on, and they're looking at them as if to say,
I know exactly what video you were talking about.
What on earth are you doing? Yeah, fantastic. It just makes them look stupid.
He was just stood in a big puddle, wasn't he? I think he was kneeling down, wasn't he? That was a puddle about a foot deep, and he was kneeled down in it. Oh, blimey.
Yeah, brilliant.
I mean, they've had it where someone's shaking a tree and that in the background.
Yeah.
And then they're throwing stuff from off camera into camera. Tumbleweed going by.
You see, what's causing them to do that? What is it? The actual? Is it their employers that are saying, "You come back with a story"?
I think I've experienced it the other day, that protest, right? I mean, I was just stood there. I didn't have any boards with me, and this guy with a camera, and they did have local media there. I just thought it was a normal, digital SLR camera was pointing at us. but it had a microphone on it, and he says, "Oh, I'm videoing. You can just talk as normal." And I thought, "Who's he telling me what to do?" He said, "Do you mind picking up that board and holding it up?" I went, "It's not my board." So I just turned around and started speaking to my brother. I think they go along and they want to make it look like a film, like fake, like a vision, some kind of, I don't know. What they expect loads of people with their boards going, yeah, and all this lot. And then when they stop filming, you can go back to your normal scene.
Yeah.
It's just fake. It's all fake.
They done that in the first Gulf War, didn't they? CNN got caught out for pretending they were in Baghdad. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
I think there was 2 reporters on the camera, and they were had the blue flak jackets on, bulletproof vests on. They had the blue helmets on to make them look like they were press. And they were supposedly up on the top of a building, like a hotel or something. And I think they had a green screen in the background, and that was like all the bombs were going off. And they were making they were in Baghdad, when really they were in some place in America. I mean,
on a beach somewhere.
Oh,
was that shock?
It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
They've been guilty of it, haven't they? Over here, when they were at the beginning, when they said people were dying in hospitals, they were showing footage from years ago, and it was shown that it was footage from years ago. But what did they do? Nothing. They just carried on because people forget.
Yeah, that's another one of them things where you point it out to someone at the time.
Yeah,
just went straight over their heads. It just eyes are just blank. There's nothing behind them. There's no thought processing happening.
No,
you don't want to look.
No, it comes back to that. What I think you classed it as something, didn't you? Hypnosis,
mass formation.
Yeah,
that's
it.
That's that guy,
Robert Malone.
Yeah, but there was another guy before him. I think he done an interview with Boyner, didn't he?
Or something, was it?
Is he a German guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
Or are you talking about the hypnotist bit, Baz?
Yeah, I think it was that I remember. Where you can just tell them so many times, and it's all suggestive, and they'll just believe it.
Yeah. Yeah, then they bring them out of it and then snap them back in, and that reinforces it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think people are coming out of it, though. They definitely are. I mean, I'm seeing it in my own people around me. I can see certain people have not gone for the 180. They're just double topped. So, like I say, I think people are sort of know what's happening. But they're just not ready to sort of hold their hands up and say, you were right. You were right, weren't you? Should have listened to you. I don't think we're ever going to get that. And we don't really need that. We just need them to admit to themselves fully and bloody come over our side and help us out, instead of just sitting on the fence. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The only thing that I've witnessed in my own working area is people saying that even though they might have had the old arm spears and that, they don't agree with the mandatory. And that's a 50-50 split with people that I work with. They don't agree with that. Even one of them said to me that we don't really know what the contents of it is. And then this other guy who was very pro went, "Oh, you don't know what's in the can of baked beans, but you still eat it." I thought, oh my gosh, what's this guy? How can you compare the two?
Yeah.
But that is what they keep hearing over and over from elsewhere, and they just repeat it.
Yeah.
You just repeat what other people say. I mean, there is an element of truth to that, but the difference is baked beans have been on the market probably over 100 years, and humans have been eating them over and over and over and over and over again. We do know that they don't cause, whatever.
Instant reaction.
Yeah.
Going back to food, can I just highly recommend an app? I've seen adverts on the telly last night, and the day before, I think, where the NHS, I think, had done an app which you can scan the barcode on the food and they'll tell you how, what's in it and if it's good for you or not. Trying to get people to eat healthier. Right, I wouldn't trust an effing thing that the NHS do. Not after all my interactions with them, Caroline's, and everything that they've gone and done over the past 2 to 3 years. I wouldn't believe a word that they say, so I don't trust that app. I've got another app, and it's called Yuka. It's called YUKA, and it is absolutely superb because you scan the barcode, and it will tell you exactly what is in the food, including additives that are sometimes not even on the labels. And some of them are carcinogenic and proven to be carcinogenic, and they're in your food. I've used it, and we've just thrown food out because it's got additives in that we didn't even know. I highly recommend it because we not all of us can eat organic. Not all of us can eat unprepared food. I mean, I'm lucky because Caroline doesn't work full time. That she manages to cook, and she's a great cook, and she can cook from anything. She makes one of the best sauces or the best gravies going. She's lasagna, brilliant, all handmade, superb. But there are others who can't, and they do eat convenience meals. So having that kind of thing, being able to scan while you're in the supermarket to tell you that actually that's a really bad one and this one's not too bad. You go for the not too bad one. Nothing in the supermarkets is really super healthy for you at the end of the day because a lot of it's all been given stuff to help prolong the lifespan.
Yeah.
But if you can just minimise it as much as you possibly can, I do recommend it. It's called Yuka, and I know it's in the Android Play Store, but I don't know if it's. Is it in the Apple as well?
Yeah. YUKA spelled.
Yeah.
27 million users.
Yeah, and
really good write up as well.
What you do is if you scan the barcode and it just comes up as unrecognised, you can actually take a picture of the product and enter the information off the back of the label, and then they will search for anything. Once it's in their database, they will search for anything that is not on the label. You'd like these additives and like these E-numbers and things that they just don't tell you about. So I highly recommended that.
I fancy some of that.
I always remember Saf and I, a little, I don't know if it's true, but Saf and I come across, because that was what introduced me to the health stuff, was what woke me up. The cancer industry was when I woke up. And I always remember hearing a little fact, whether it's true or not, I don't know. But because food has got so much preservatives in it now, right? I heard something once where I think it was a paramedic claimed that when they find dead bodies now that have been dead for 2, 3, 4 weeks, however long, they're not decomposing like they used to years ago. And that's because of all the preservatives we eat.
Wow.
No idea if that's true or not.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me.
It makes sense, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, it does. I mean, I think I mentioned this last time. That woman who had the McDonald's thing from 20 odd years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, that ain't right. So if that's what you're eating, and then your body's processing that,
absorbing those preservatives. I mean, they must be seriously strong preservatives because, like you say, we're all seeing them where they put like a Big Mac inside a sealed glass container or something with the fries. Yeah. Go back to them 3 months later, and I've seen them where they'll put that in, and then a real made burger with bread without any preservatives and proper potato fries. And one decompose like within days, or start to break down after a few days. And that McDonald's one will just sit there forevermore.
Yeah.
And they're like saying, well, if the bacteria won't eat it, why the hell would we want to eat it?
Exactly. But it seems to be the food of choice, doesn't it? All these the government's telling us to eat healthier, but then they'll open up another Greggs, they'll open up another McDonald's. We've got, I think round here, there's about 5 Greggs in Barnsley alone, and 3 or 4 McDonald's, and a couple of KFCs, and you just think, what?
They're the ones that are left open during the lockdown. That says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
You couldn't find anything healthy to eat.
Well, I think this would be another good subject to do either an offshoot podcast or a special on whether we can get somebody on who's a specialist in this, or whether we just sit and discuss it again. It'd be a good thing to talk about, I think.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I'd like to talk about, which is sort of linked to that a bit, is what do we think the world has got to be like at the end of all this? Because you just touched on it, Baz. You know, people's faith in the NHS and big pharma has got to be shot to pieces at the end of this. It's going to be shot to pieces with government. They won't trust a word they say. And we can just go through all these subjects and say, look, what, because something's going to have to emerge from all this.
Yeah.
Is it going to be natural health, alternative health? Is that all going to come back again?
Is it too much hassle for everybody?
Is
everybody inherently lazy now?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a bit of a mix, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's going to be.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting to have a bit of a chat about that.
Definitely. That's something we should
get your opinions on that.
Yeah.
I think so.
Definitely.
So should we wrap this up now, boys?
I think we should. It's been a good 70 minutes so far. So that flew. That absolutely flew.
Yeah.
I love doing these. I love getting together with you guys. It's a shame Billy wasn't here, but it's
we'll make sure he's on the next one.
It's good for us. 100%. Right, thank you for listening, everybody. You've been listening to Team Bubba, and see you next time.
Yep. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Take care.